It's amazing that you can film these things on your phone now. That's a better quality than...
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do on your phone now.
We're all good.
Are we there? Are we rolling?
We're rolling.
Okay.
Can we just kick off?
Let's just kick off, yeah. So welcome Rory to this series.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to first thank Mary for recommending you.
Yes, thank you, Mary.
As you know, I'm on a journey to explore what it means about songwriting and song and all things, particularly in between, to do with that. So I've just got a few questions we're going to start with, and obviously I know a little bit about you already. We've had a chance to play together, and I've got to. It's been a pleasure to get to know some of your material so far. If you could just give us an introduction to your roots and a little bit of your musical history, just to get us started on the conversation.
Yeah, well, my name's Rory Butler. I grew up in Scotland, mainly in Edinburgh, which is where we are today, Portobello. Most of my upbringing was in Leith, just down the road. But for the first 6 years, I was just outside Glasgow in a place called Dalry. My folks lived there for 6 years before we moved here. And I suppose that's where the musical journey started for me, because that's where my parents ran a recording studio there for the years that I lived there. The whole basement was filled with an analog desk and all the bits of gear that studios want today, vintage stuff, and so yeah, I mean, for all that time, artists were coming in, recording albums, and I was there, but pretty wee, but I'm sure I picked up on a lot of just the energy that was going on around the house, and maybe when I got to the age of 5 or 6, to sort of pick up bits and bobs from the musicians that came through. And it's nice. I think that's also where the community started as well, because my parents are very much in a musical community, and that's where they've kind of built that. Because when you've got guys coming into the studio, you get to know them very well. It's a very sort of intimate setting, the recording studio, and so they're still in touch with loads of people that came to make records there, and so I got to know them very well as well, and quite a lot of their children are my age, so we've sort of all have a lot of my people I've known that are my age throughout my life have that sort of connection through the musicians that were in that community then, and now we have our own one, which is very nice, because a lot of them became musicians as well. So yeah, I mean, that's absolutely where it all started for me, and has built all from there and from that community, I think.
And were there any particular musicians that came through that you particularly connected to at the time, that maybe some that were an influence as well?
Yeah, somebody that I'm still work with sometimes today is a man called Ian Archer, who recorded a couple of albums with my dad and the other people working at that studio, and he did a couple of his very early albums there. And when I became old enough to play the guitar, it was really Ian that I was trying to emulate. He was a real great fingerstyle guitar player. Very much had a lot of the same influences that I have. And I'd say we never really lost touch with my parents, and since I've gotten older, he's continued to have quite a successful career in songwriting, and is now quite well known for co-writing with artists, quite well known artists that are now sort of through big labels, and even up till 2 years ago, we were still getting together to do songwriting sessions, co-writing sessions, which I feel very lucky to do, because I'm not sure if I would have gotten that opportunity had I not known him from childhood.
Well, as they say, try to work with the best.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that really stands out for me. He is one of the artists that came from that period that I'm still, influenced by. So yeah, he's a big one.
So let's get into the songwriting aspect. Would you say you, for example, like these days, I would say, like when I first started crafting with the whole craft of writing songs, there's the structural aspect, and then the later on, for me, my experience was more about later on is just when you got the real creative flow going. There's more of the creative flow, and it's almost sometimes it's almost like surfing. You kind of surf that energy when it starts to come through, the creative energy. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And would you say it's kind of, what's the balance with you? It's like the balance between the creativity that comes through and the crafting side.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I always feel like there's a big element of chance in my songwriting. I feel like there's never really any knowing when something is going to come out of nothing, But like anything, I think the more the more you try something, the more time you give it, the more chances you get. Because when I'm writing a song, it's just nonsense until either I hear something coming out or some kind of energy does come to me, But it happens. It doesn't happen very often. I have to say, most times when I sit down to write a song, nothing happens. But as you say, when something does come, I have to stick with it once it's there, and it takes quite a lot of discipline for me to do that, because I do actually get quite frustrated writing songs, to be honest. I have to discipline myself to do it. But yeah, it's a funny one. I feel like I've had a stroke of luck every time a song comes to me, and I never know if that luck is going to run out.
Well, I think it's almost like it's that balance between getting that purity, there's the pureness that comes through, and then it's almost like tidying it up, I mean, we had a first conversation we had a trial run with a friend of mine down where I live on the south coast of England, and I was saying to him, well, my studying of some of the greats that I've studied, you've got so many different examples, like Bob Dylan. He just doesn't waste much time on it. It just comes straight through, and it's just like,
Yeah.
And then Leonard Cohen might take 10 years on the poem,
Yeah.
and then Joni Mitchell, it kind of comes through, and then she really crafts afterwards and really kind of keeps notching away at it,
Yeah.
There's quite a variety.
Yeah, I think I definitely belong to this sort of second school that you talked of there. Very often, a really important part of writing for me, it comes in bits. So I've got a sort of, and phones come in very handy for this. So there's I've got a phone full of small ideas, and quite often forget about the ideas that have come up. So it's quite important that they're all there. And if a song doesn't come in its entirety, then it's going back and finding all those little bits, and sometimes just joining them together, even if they don't really quite fit, and then making them fit, and seeing if one can complement the other if you give it a chance, and building it from there. I'm definitely more of a builder than a just letting something come out. It can take a really long time. It's very rarely that I'll do sit down and have a song in half an hour. Although it does happen sometimes, and actually quite often those are the best ones, which is really annoying.
Well, there's some great examples of songs that you've just some classic songs that have just come straight through, and that's it.
Oh, totally.
I remember I'd actually got it's been great to come back up to Scotland, and I was just saying to somebody that I used to come up to do some work in the Highlands and playing music up there and regularly, and it really kicked off my creativity again. I was driving away from one session up there, and it just started coming through, and like you say, with the phones, I was literally driving and speaking into my phone. I was, and then you put the bits together afterwards. And
it makes me. I wonder what how you could manage that before there were phones. If all these ideas that you get just disappear and you never come back to them, never see them again. Because I do so much of that, and there's so much of these things that I hear on my phone I have no recollection of doing. So without that resource, I certainly wouldn't write the same way as I do now, I don't think.
Talking of which, should we get to one of your songs now?
Yeah.
Whichever one you want, actually.
Well, I'm in the tuning for Lost and Found at the moment. So that's the one in G. Are you in G?
I'm in G.
Okay. There's a song called Lost and Found. your best for me. Save your best for last, and everyone around me. Guess I'm gonna be high. Is it something on? Or is it just me making love to matchmakers? Never came free. Oh, I've heard, and I'm tired of the words you should open up your heart. Come around to being lost and found. Let's appall the free, make the guilty mad, everyone around me. Guess I'm gonna be high. Is it something on? Is it something free? Making love to matchmaker. Never came free. Oh, I've heard. Now I'm tired of the words you should open up your heart. Come around to being lost and found. 'Cause it's overboard, over and over. It's overboard. Jump when you're told, or it's hit the floor. Maybe everyone around thinks I want lost or found. Save your best for me. Save your best for last, and everyone around me. Guess I'm gonna be high, but I've heard, and I'm tired of the words you should open up your heart. Come around. Come around, being lost and found, lost and found. Well played.
Well.
I like having that thing in my songs.
Yeah, well, let's do it
Horror.
again. Yeah, well, let's
It's lovely.
do
I've never actually, been in the same room as one before, so it's
Yeah,
great to actually hear what it sounds
well,
like.
I'm very
Really.
pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
I have to mention, when I first heard you, like many of at least my generation, and it just in a way has reminded me what an influence he has been. A certain musician called John Martin.
He comes up a lot.
Yes, I'm sure.
When I talk to him.
And I'm sure you take it as a compliment.
Of course.
Absolutely. And so, was that a conscious thing, or was it?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people that had parents a bit like mine. John Martin was on in the house, along with the Joni Mitchells and Nick Drake, and he's just one, particularly in Scotland, or actually that's probably not true, but just he's in that sort of realm of singer-songwriters that all come together and sort of like and so many are influenced by it. And so yeah, I've really been on in the house a lot. My old man had a John Martin cover on his first album. So there's no secret that he's a fan. So yeah, I mean, it's not like I don't even remember, becoming into his music. It was just always kind of there, and has clearly, had a really big influence on how I've learned to play guitar. Because I think a lot of when I was learning to play guitar, a lot of it was listening to albums of his and other artists like him, and trying to figure out what on earth was going on and how the picking patterns were done. And that took a bit of doing. But I spent a long time, remember listening to albums of John Martyn's and trying to figure out what the tunings were as well, trying to figure out which strings were open from the sound of them, and trying to find out, and if I'd got all the open ones, then I might be able to figure out what the tuning was. And because but then there wasn't YouTube, so you couldn't look at what the fingers were doing, which you can do now, which is great. I've since gone, watched John Martyn videos and try and see where his fingers are, and you can see which strings are open when he's played them, so you can then actually see, what you're doing. But I do kind of miss the practice of trying to get it just by ear, because actually, if you're totally wrong, then that can quite often do quite interesting things, and from that you can you end up writing songs and the tunings that you discover through guys like John, and if they're not the same ones as the original artist did use, then you never know what you're going to come
back to the sort of the creative part of it. Have you found, or is that one of the methods you use, trying different tunings?
Totally.
Yeah.
In fact, quite often a very normal thing for me to do would be to tune the guitar into something totally random. That can sound a bit horrible sometimes, but and so that I don't really know what my fingers are doing anyway at the best of times, but even less so when I muck around with the tunings, and it means whatever my fingers do is a total guess, and so obviously you have to faff around a little bit first before you find something that sounds nice, and if you do find something that sounds nice, then you can go from that, and melodic ideas will come from whatever strange voicings you find on the guitar, for me anyway. So I can start a melody from there, and then what quite often happens is it just sounds too odd on the guitar if the tuning's too out there, so once I've done the song, come up with the melody, I'll then put the guitar back into something a little bit more standard. Not standard tuning normally, but Dadgad, or a lot of my new ones are an open C.
Oh, okay.
Some variation of, and then redo the song in that tuning that is slightly sort of easier for the ear to understand, and for the fingers to understand as well. So absolutely, playing around with tunings is a really big part of coming up with melodies for me.
I found when I started exploring open tuning, mainly Dadgad, I got lucky and I had a duet with a pioneering guitarist in the acoustic guitar world who was the real pioneer for the whole percussion technique, percussion guitar.
Yeah.
Wonderful Irish musician called Eric Roche, and so I picked up the whole. So I was kind of unknowingly, because I was playing kora with him, and I unknowingly got the idea of Dadgad really from him, and then when I finally had a chance to try it out, I found incredible freedom within that, because I'd stopped playing guitar now, so I got back into guitar through that, and it's like, I'll be able to. I found a way to start creating melodies, and covering the whole spectrum. Yeah, and it's a beautiful freedom.
I really found that as well. Yeah, absolutely, it's a lovely freedom. It's much more open, hence the name probably.
Should we play another one?
Yeah.
Which one this time?
Well, we've been talking about John Martyn, so we could play one of his songs.
Yeah, which one was that one?
It's called You Can Discover. And it's one that I've been doing for a wee while now, so it's nice and
sometimes our laughter comes fluid with me. And the very next day our sorrow, she doesn't cry again. Darling, you can survive. I can survive. Together we can roll and down the
Nice.
I actually.
I think he would have liked that.
Yeah. Actually, there's so many great. Just to finish on the subject of John, there's so many great John stories, of course.
Yeah.
And I actually got one of the best. I've just actually the host, my host in Edinburgh, a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And the friend just came in today, and so I mentioned about John, and she said, "Oh yeah, I was at the Queen's Hall."
John Wyatt gig. Sorry, I'm just totally.
I think it was about 20 years ago.
Right.
And she said that she was with her friends in the pub beforehand. She didn't have a ticket for the gig.
Yeah.
And she saw John sitting in the corner reading a book.
Right.
So she went up and said, "Look, I haven't got a ticket." So apparently what he did, he just tore the page straight out of the book, wrote she's something or other on the book, and said, "Look, give them this at the door."
There's your ticket.
That was it.
I wonder if you got it.
It's a good John
That's
story.
a good one,
Yeah.
like that. I hope she still got the page.
She said she regrets not keeping the piece of paper.
No way.
Yeah.
Can't believe that's been lost.
So,
I know what book it was, sorry. Again, can I do it? What's it?
So there's, like I said, I'm on a bit of a journey with this series about what it means for song. What about what would you say in terms of the link back to any kind of roots and tradition and those kind of subjects? I mean, is it possible to say, like, you know, what that means for you? Is it important for you in terms of,
like, in traditional Scots stuff?
in a way, whatever. I mean,
I'm. Although I'm not sure how much it shines through in songwriting. I think it probably does, but I do a lot of. I listen to a lot of traditional Scottish music. My partner in particular is a very good violin player, and she plays a lot of Scottish and Irish tunes, and I do my best to play the guitar along with them. Though it's not my strong point, but I have to say that, you know, I am really moved more by particularly fiddle tunes than quite a lot of other kinds of music. I find it a lot easier to be moved by violin melodies, particularly trad stuff, than I do with from songs in lots of ways, which is strange. Particularly when hearing violin in a live, when it's right next to me. But never was a great player of trad stuff though. But I did a lot of when I did English at literature at university, and I did a lot of I did a Burns module whilst I was there, and so during that time I read a lot more Burns than I ever have, and got very into it, but never again, you know, although I'm sure it has had an influence on the words that I write. I've never written in Scots. Maybe that's something that I could explore one day, but I do feel, and I always have felt, very very Scottish, and I think that the Celtic music is a really big part of me being moved by that aspect of my identity. So yeah, I think that it has had a big influence on me, but I'm not sure in what way that manifests itself in my music. I don't know. Although it has been, I was working with a producer in London last week, and he said to me, you know, I've worked with a few of you Celtic guys, and there's definitely some kind of swing. And I was like, really? That's very interesting. So I wonder what that is, and if he is actually recognising something there or not.
Well, I think that reminds me of the classic Duke Ellington statement, "There's only good and bad music," which, you know, I mean, being a study of indigenous cultures and music, there is swing whether it's Amazonian Indians in the jungle, or the Amazon, or whether it's in a ceilidh in Scotland.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes is the answer. It's very important, I think, to me.
Should we get to the other song?
Mm-hmm.
Which is another one of yours, isn't it?
Another one of mine, yeah. And this is a really old guitar that doesn't cope particularly well with capos being thrown on and off it. So bear with me just for a wee second.
And remind me that this one's called
Have I Come Down?
Yeah. Oh yes,
It's called.
it's one of my favourites.
Oh, thanks.
Would you say this is more in the direction of what you might call like an air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you know, if there is a song, particularly off that album, that where you can hear that influence, this is it. Okay.
If I come down, if I come down at last, if I wasted all my young years thinking of my path, if I come down on a high, if I come down
Like we're both a bit away with the fairies doing that, man. Nice.
It's the way to be.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Right. So, do you feel that in recent times then your songwriting is kind of developing, is moving in a certain direction?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure though. I think it's funny because I've done, so I did this album recently, the window shopping album, that was all in, and that was all in Dadgads, which is a tune that we were both playing in at the beginning of the night. And the whole of the next one is a kind of drop B sort of thing. So, and I know that that's not a musical direction, but it definitely means that there's a different sort of sound. But I did know when I was going to be doing this next album that it was going to be in the same zone as the last one. You know, I think it's okay to have a couple of albums, 2 or 3 albums that don't stray too far from each other on like some path or progression. I think it is important to do that, but it's all right. I think if there's a few consecutive albums that share a feel and share a sort of like moment in your sort of musical path, and so I think I'm still on that one. And the direction that will happen after that is still not known to me. But I think I feel that there's a lot in there, and I think it will change, but it's not happening in a really obvious way yet, I don't think.
And in terms of the content, in terms of the lyrics, is that sort of shifting as well? Is that going in a particular direction?
I don't think so. No, it's still happening in very much the same way. Cause it's been a funny one because the album that was released last year was a collection of songs that happened over sort of like it was really the first album that I put out properly. I did one when I was in my teens, but so that was a collection of songs that had been maybe it was sort of 7 or 8 years or something like that, and then everything that's going on this next one happened within a year. So in the sort of context of musical development, it's very close to the first recording project, and so there hasn't been much time for me to sort of consciously move in a different direction. So I think it's even lyrically, I still feel this like I'm the same person doing the same thing.
And I really enjoyed also the production. It was lovely old school. It was lovely and warm, analog, but also the simplicity of it.
Yeah, it was really.
It was a lot. There was a lot to enjoy there, and it's
good.
and the live feel as well.
Yeah, I'm glad.
It really paid off, I think.
Yeah, we just did it. There was 3 of us: guitar, double bass, and drums, and we did it in a circle, live in 4 days. But then I did go back in and put lots of harmonies on it and percussion. But as you say, that the meat and bones of it were recorded live all together. And I think that's a really nice way of doing it, and a lot of my favourite albums, I think, were done that way. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but sometimes it's very obvious.
I think it's great that I think a lot of us, at least I know a lot of the musicians the artists are going to be interviewing in this series, it's all in that direction. It's really as live and acoustic and rootsy as possible.
Yeah.
It's definitely the way I like to go.
Yeah.
But not that you can't be, it's good to be always open to experimentation and be fearless in terms of exploring new areas. Yeah,
exactly. I think experimentation is not recording that way opens you up to experimentation, because I guess you could experiment while doing it live, but something that I'm quite looking forward to in the next recording is and I'm not going to do the next one live, So that's, I guess, it is a kind of musical. That's a different direction in some ways. But what it will allow is putting things on that can be taken off again. And bringing guys in to do things and that you can keep or you can let go, and those are all experiments. And I think you never know what you might enjoy when you start putting things on that you might not have if you thought you were going to be doing it in the heat of a live, and the pressure of a live recording. So yeah, I'm looking forward to experimenting with that.
Okay. Is there one more song you want to offer from your own album for?
Yeah, sure. Gosh, which one?
I'll just sit and enjoy it this time.
Cool, yeah, no worries. Let's do...
Sorry to put you on the spot like
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I've played these songs enough times by now.
I know you're always.
No.
They're always ready to go. So which tuning is this one?
So this is there's a couple on the record that are just go into open D, so that G turns into an F sharp and it gives you an open chord. It's very Johnny. It's kind of easy to slip into Johnny mode.
Yeah.
When you're in this tune. This is a song called That Side of the World. Please send overseas send. So I see it and believe it. Mean it when I say that I'm sorry for the way you were treated. Stop this madness, 'cause we don't know what it's like to be defeated. So here we go, baby, yeah, just take it easy, 'cause we're never gonna go, never gonna know, never gonna see what's needed, never gonna live inside, never gonna live inside that side of the world, that side of the world, that side of the world. 'Cause we don't want to, we don't want to, no, we don't want to, 'cause we like it how we like it, and we like it every little which way we want it. And stop that man, 'cause he isn't part of the plan, and we should never see him. So here we go, baby, yeah, let's take it easy, 'cause I'm never gonna go, never gonna know, never gonna see what's needed, I'm never gonna live inside, I'm never gonna live inside that side of the world, that side of the world, that side of the world, that side of the world. So won't you run with me, run away with me. There are other lovers living undercover and only ever knowing sadness. We should
love these strangers, 'cause we don't know what it's like to need a savior. So here we go, baby. Everyone's taking it easy, 'cause we're never gonna go, never gonna know, never gonna see what's needed. We're never gonna live inside, we're never gonna live inside that side of the world, that side of the world, that side of the world. Oh, we ain't ever gonna see. No, we ain't ever gonna see. Yeah. That side of the world. Yeah, we're gonna see that side.
Thank you very much for having me.
As I said, I've been enjoying the album, so it's great to be so close and see what you've actually been doing with your fingers.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Yeah, no, it's nice to play in a kind of live situation.
So, in terms of current songwriters, is there anybody you're particularly enjoying at the moment?
Yeah. There's a great artist that I'm listening to quite a lot at the moment called go by Iron and Wine, who, because I've been trying to listen to stuff that's being released at the moment, so that I can have some kind of up-to-date reference for what I want the next record to sound like, but I'm so in the past in terms of what I listen to that I've kind of been forced to sort of come up with some references. So yeah, I've been on Spotify a lot, listening, trying to find things that I like, and that. So he's got some really great stuff. Iron and Wine, and Naas Mitchell. I've kind of always been a big fan of her, and she's got a new outfit at the moment with a couple of other very talented musicians. They go by Bonnie Light Horseman, and they are making some great noise at the moment. So yeah, those are two big ones. I obviously am a big Laura Marling fan. I think she's leagues in a kind of league of her own in terms of the sound of her recordings. Not only the songwriting is I think is fantastic, but the production of her albums, particularly her last two ones, have been absolutely wonderful to listen to. If I could work with any of them guys, then I definitely would. So yeah, there's plenty. I mean,
where are you going to be recording these new recordings?
They're going to be done at a place called Urchin Studios, which is in Hackney Wick in London. So I'm going down there in 2 weeks' time. I'll spend the 1st to the 5th of November in that studio and see what happens.
And this is going to be an EP?
Yeah, 4 tracks. And then I'll go in next year and do another. I think the plan is to go in next year and do another EP. So there'll be like 2 EP releases next year, and if they go well, then, well, no matter what, there's going to be an album afterwards. I don't care what happens with those 2 EPs, there will be one album.
And now you're working with the label, is that right?
Yeah, so that's a new development. So yeah, I'm really, or well, I don't know. We've only just started. It's very, very new. So don't really know what that's going to be like. But in terms of like how I can work, how the studio experience has worked, it's changed things quite a lot, as I say, from going in and banging out an album in 4 days to like a slightly more relaxed approach where there's a bit more time that you that you have, and that changes the whole feel of being in the studio when you know you're not running out of time every second, So that'll be interesting.
And you're working with a producer this time, is that
yeah,
right? Which is a new experience.
It's also a new experience.
Yeah,
I've never done that either, so I'm not really quite sure what to expect from that, to tell you the truth. But we have done a couple of days pre-production together, recording together, and that felt very, very natural. Of course, it depends on, I believe, who you're working with, but it certainly seems that this is going to be an easy enough partnership, I think.
Shall we just close out with a Jam on D again?
Sure. Jam on D. Well, thank you so much for having me in, man.
Well,
It's been lovely to talk to you.
It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to staying in touch and hearing what you're going to do next.
Definitely. And for you as well. And I hope the rest of your adventures go well.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, do. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks.
So, my nail broke off as we were doing the last bit, so I was like,
Classic.
thanks, man. That was great fun. Thank you very much. Nice.
Phew.
Thanks,
Thanks, bro.
I really enjoyed it. Cheers,
Yeah,
man.
no, it's great. You know.